Peace and all good from Franciscan Media. I am Father Jim Sabak, and this is the Inbreaking of the Word. Christmas bells, a Christmas hat, a little Christmas tree behind me. What's going on? We are celebrating. It's February already. What is going on? Why are we continuing to celebrate Christmas, you may wonder? Well, because today we have a wonderful occasion which only happens every couple of years, in which the feast of the presentation of the Lord falls on a Sunday. Whereas this should be the fourth Sunday in ordinary time, it gets suppressed, and because this is a feast of the Lord, it takes precedence. And so we celebrate Jesus's presentation. What is this? Well, most people do not realize, but in the medieval church especially, although there are linkings back to maybe late antiquity within this, again, as Christmas becomes a season in which to celebrate, not just a day on the 25th, we have the occasion in which, when does Christmas end? Again, Lent, concludes with the Triduum. Easter concludes with Pentecost. Advent concludes with Christmas. But Christmas, again, doesn't always have a kind of definite way of ending. Sometimes it'll end on Epiphany with the baptism of the Lord following on a Monday. Sometimes it ends with the baptism of the Lord. And so it's all over the place, sometimes in trying to understand where it concludes. And that's perhaps a very important thing to recognize and to realize. Again, the wonder of God becoming one like us, while not equal in celebration to a God who basically raises Jesus from the dead and creates new life out of resurrection, is still fundamentally important and a part of who and what we are as believers in this world. And so, when did Christmas end? Again, sometimes people would say that it ends on Mardi Gras before we begin Ash Wednesday, but what happens in the Middle Ages is that the Feast of Christmas becomes extended. And why? Well, because what you're doing after Epiphany really is you're moving into Carnival, which again, from the Latin two words, vale, to say farewell to meat. It was the time to eat up all of what has been preserved over the winter months of meat and meat products, or whatever it is, chicken, whatever it is, that had to be salted and dried and whatever it is, as you moved into the spring season, in which new plantings, new growth, again, new butchering of animals, whatever, would begin to happen. And so this time of celebration, again, falling after the birth of Christ, again, a great celebration in and of itself. And so for many in the Middle Ages, that sense of Carnival, again, would move to Mardi Gras, yes, but in the church's calendar, it would kind of come to its culmination on this 40th day after Christmas. Again, the 40th day of Christmas, if you were celebrating fully within the season, Jesus' presentation in the temple on February the 2nd, which again, 40 days from Christmas. It's not Jesus' circumcision. That would have happened 7 days after. Again, and that kind of got conflated with January 1 and remembering Mary, the Mother of God. But this is a very different one. Again, according to the law of Moses, the firstborn son of every family was to be offered to the Lord as a thanksgiving. Because again, having a boy in the ancient church was more important than having a girl, because again, the ancients, were stupid. So what else can you say about that? But this was the whole thing. Again, you've given a male child, you offered it back to God to say, thank you for doing this. May this child become something, in our life as a family, or in his life, as a human being. And so this great progress, into celebrating this moment in which Christ becomes a light for the nations, as it says. Again, a revelation not just to shepherds, not just to Mary and Joseph, but now to all people. The interesting thing about it is that this is the revelation to the nations. It's in Luke's gospel only. And Luke's gospel does not have magi, does not have three kings. That is Matthew's gospel. And so we need to have this understanding of Jesus not just being for Judaism, but being for all of humanity, for all of creation, for all the nations. And so this is where this Feast of the Presentation also functions. Again, it does not appear in Matthew's infancy narratives or anything else like that. So it is singular to Luke's gospel in the same way the Magi are singular to Matthew's gospel. And so again, to continue to celebrate Christmas, to not let this go. The rest of the world has boxed this up, put it away, and how sad for them. Again, we as believers are called always to embrace the wonder and beauty of what it is that we celebrate, to delve even more deeply into what it is that we celebrate. We ourselves put brakes on everything because we're stupid human beings at times. Again, and it's like we think that it's not good for us to celebrate too much because somehow that does get an injustice to God and God's justice upon us or whatever it is. Stop thinking that way. This is not what we're called to be. This is not why God created us. God created us to have life and to have it to its fullest. John 10:10. And also Ecclesiastes says something about it is good to eat and drink and to feast because this is what humanity deserves. This is what humanity is made for. So all these kinds of things that basically fall to the wayside when we focus so much upon sinfulness and brokenness and mistakes that we lose sight of the wonder and joy of what it means to be human. And that's really what this celebration, what this feast of the presentation celebrates. Generally, it's on a weekday, and people who maybe go to daily mass will know it's there. That's about it. Nothing else will happen. It is a day on which we are to bless all of the candles that will be used throughout the year in our churches. That's hardly ever done. There's a procession that goes along with it, that you can even bring candles from home and have those blessed. Again, all these kinds of things. Tell your pastors, tell your people that this is how we should make the celebration a celebration. Again, to bless these very things, that are a part of us and a part of our life, a part of our worship, because Christ is this light come into the world to shred the darkness and to allow our lives to have fullness of meaning and have faith. And so again, Micah brings us into it, in which basically God, through Micah, again, the prophet who talks about the dawn from the east rising to save us, again, speaks of a messenger who is going to come to rebuild Jerusalem, to bring back everything how it should be, how we should worship, how we should sacrifice, how we should be a people before God. This messenger is going to do that. This messenger is going to bring a fullness and a greater understanding of God's will for us and how we should live as a part of the life of God. Not with judgment, not with condemnation, not with any of those kinds of things that we so often associate with God. This is not about a God who wants to settle scores in bringing this messenger, but a God who wants to give us life. Hebrews, our second reading, basically speaks again and again about how we need a Savior. We need a Messiah who is like us. Because if this Messiah can change everything by what he suffered, so he can change our lives, again, through what we may suffer at times. Again, the idea of this all being that we are not just people prone to suffering and pain. We are people who are created, again, to rejoice in the wonder and beauty of what it means to be human. This is where, again, the fathers at Nicaea, the scholars at Nicaea, and in the Council of Nicaea in 325, were trying basically to understand who this Jesus was. And they look to Hebrews, basically to say this Jesus is like us, in all things. This Jesus becomes one like us in all things. There is no and but sin, like us in all things, but sin. Hebrews is not concerned with that. Hebrews is not concerned, but yet we get so concerned with it. We have to keep our Jesus separate than us. Again, if our Jesus is too separate from us, then we can never have any hope of salvation or redemption. Hebrews leaves it, first and foremost, with one like us, this Savior who comes to be like us, to share our life with us. And then we have basically, again, Luke's whole narrative of Jesus being presented in the temple again, and first Simeon, who comes forward, who was not going to see death until he beheld the Messiah, embraces this child again and says many kinds of things. A child who will be the light to the nations, but a child who will also be a contradiction. And because of the life of this child, a sword will pierce Mary's heart. Again, understanding nothing, Mary and Joseph understanding really nothing about what this man is saying, again, speaks the truth. This child that is often used, Christ who is often used, again, as a way to project things that are not true and that are not real of us, they're not real of our faith. A child who can be manipulated in so many ways to get other agendas furthered, and that is not why Christ comes. This is not who Christ is. Again, this sign of contradiction. Do not use Jesus in that way. Again, he is not the Messiah they expected. He will not preach in the way that they thought the Messiah would preach. He will not do what they thought the Messiah would do. We must make sure that we do not fall into those kinds of patterns of trying to make Jesus into what he is not, but really to be challenged by who it is and what he comes to bring. The other person who is also a part of this is Anna. Again, sometimes she will be cut out of the shorter forms. She's even cut out of the children's lectionary when they have their own passages in their section on the Feast of the Presentation. She shouldn't be cut out. We do not know what she says, but it says that she proclaims, again, wonder and beauty and glory of God when she encounters Christ. But she's the daughter of Phanuel, and she's of the tribe of Asher. Simeon is not connected in such a way. way. This woman seems to have had some prominence, and she has some connection to ancient Israel. The son of Jacob, Asher, again, whose line continues now with Anna. He has seen this fulfillment of God's promises to us. Again, this God who does not ever go back on his promises, a God who will not, come up empty with the promises that God has given us, but a God who fulfills again and again the promises God has made to us. The number 40 is too often associated with Lent, and that's about it. And when we think of Lent, we think of sadness, dourness, sins, brokenness, all those other kinds, sacrifice, giving up, all those other kinds of things, which Lent is not. And hopefully we'll get to look at that when we come to Lent. But what about 40 days of joy? 40 days of unbridled joy, 40 days of being able to celebrate again and again. Easter will give us 50 of it, but Christmas gives us 40. Why shortchange ourselves? Why diminish the joy that is Christmas and try to box it up and put it away so quickly and let, again, ordinary time be what it is not, just plain old ordinary? Again, as we moved into this ordinary time, the echoes of Christmas continue to reverberate, and today they come to a crescendo in the feast of the presentation of the Lord. May that Merry Christmas that we were wishing each other so much in December and a little bit into January continue throughout, again, not only this day, but our lives. Christ is born for us. He was called Wonder Counselor, Mighty God, King forever, Prince of Peace, something that can never be taken away because it is God's will, and is what God has designed, what God has created. May we rejoice in that, and in that rejoicing become a light ourselves to the nations. And may the Lord give you his peace.